Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shill steps, lacers, peasants, vassals, minions. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And today I want to talk about Vladimir Putin and Russia, and specifically this incredible propaganda campaign going on by the United States with their faithful bootlicking minions in Europe now going along reluctantly with a new battery of sanctions, and of course corporate media along for the ride. And so the combined efforts of these different factions is really creating quite a din out there. I'm really surprised to see such a grandiose propaganda campaign, and one that is so painfully obvious. And this has been ramping up with this propaganda war with Russia for quite some time, since events have been unfolding in Ukraine to where they are now. And it's hypocritical and laughable for the United States to be so vehemently demonizing Russia and Putin under the circumstances, considering the U.S. has admitted putting $5 billion into Ukraine over the years to undermine it, and then has obviously been in support of this group of unlikely people that run this collapsing Ukrainian government, as it turns out now, where we find these right-wing thugs and these neo-Nazi groups, ex-central bankers, which is essentially the same thing, and then all these other Ukrainian oligarch factions running this country, and then unleashing this campaign, this brutal campaign against the breakaway regions in the east. But inevitable result, but the way it's been handled has been certainly something easily criticized. We see this kind of brutality all over the globe now. But the fact that we have the United States essentially responsible for destabilizing Ukraine and creating the situation, the idea that they're holding Putin responsible for is pretty hilarious. And to compound that, of course, we have Russia and Putin, as it's now pretty confirmed that they have supplied a lot of heavier weapons to the rebels in the east. But let's get something clear. People need to understand that a lot of the rebels in the breakaway regions in the east and Donetsk are actually rather disillusioned with the Russians. They broke away and assuming that they would be annexed, and or at least when the war heightened there, that Russia would come and protect them. And I've attached an article below about that phenomenon. It's been going on for some time. And the rebels were shocked right away when they broke away from the Kiev government in Ukraine and wanted to be part of the Russia, and Russia didn't go there. But the United States painted this whole image that Russia was about to invade and they were going to come and protect their Russian brothers in those eastern breakaway regions, and they were going to annex them and all this. And of course, none of it's true. And in spite of the fact that all this propaganda is turning out to be bullshit left and right as usual, yet the corporate government propaganda spew that's going on still seems to be effective. We got this supposed new war, Cold War, being developed, and everybody seems to be on board. And it's an easy game to play, of course, because bringing back the good old days when the commies were the boogeyman. So now we have the commies as the boogeyman again, along with Al Qaeda and ISIS and all this terrorism. And China as a boogeyman as well. But Putin has been in power for 15 years. Why now? The United States actually has had a fairly good relationship with Russia, and in fact, when Mitt Romney talked about Russia being an enemy during his presidential campaign, it was almost laughable. It was so quaint. Yet now we have these relations suddenly artificially constructed tensions, or at least these events being exploited beyond what the implications really are. So it begs to the question: why now? It's just more part of the big squeeze east with NATO and consolidation of a global American hegemony. So now we get to portray Putin. The United States portrays Putin as some kind of mass murderer, and for some reason has something to do with this shooting down of the MH17. But of course, Putin has produced evidence where the United States is not, and has been a fairly moderate figure in this situation, and showed remarkable restraint. Like I said before, historically, the annexation of Crimea makes a lot of sense and has a lot of legitimacy within the Russian sphere of influence. And I have no illusions about Putin. He is just another oligarch. He has a massive amount of wealth, a lot of it obviously ill-gotten in a Russian brand of crony capitalism. And he is not a man to be to let down your guard. He can be dangerous there's no doubt of that as an oligarch, but I guess I'm just suggesting he's no better and worse than anyone else, and in some cases right now, he's better than others, and yet he's being portrayed as some kind of mass murderer, some kind of new Hitler. And the corporate media is out in full force with all the latest. Here's one called Putin with that great evil face on the cover there, a web of lies. And the article goes on to say the shooting down of the airliner shows how reckless Vladimir Putin's sponsorship of Ukrainian rebels has been. And this sponsorship of Ukrainian rebels hasn't exactly been reckless. It's a page book out of the American Globalist Empire catalog, and therefore they're just exercising the same sort of tactics that the United States does on a daily basis in half the countries in the globe. We have another corporate rag, Time. Cold War II, the West is losing Putin's dangerous game. Once again, showing that the United States somehow in the situation is showing weakness when we are obviously the antagonist. And the West is losing some dangerous game that Putin's playing. And Putin's not playing the dangerous game. The Obama administration is playing the dangerous game. Here's another heart-rendering piece in Time of the body in the middle of the field. Crime without punishment. Russia backed the rebels suspected of shooting down Malaysia Airlines. Why each new crisis makes Putin stronger. So this is another thing that's disturbing about this whole thing is how quickly corporate propaganda and bullshit becomes one and the same with the United States government official policies and propaganda and bullshit. The fact that they go hand in hand is one of the things that makes this all the more disgusting and all the more corrupt and all the more blatant. And obviously orchestrated by the U.S. government, obviously orchestrated by those who have a corporate interest in demonizing Russia. And so we have to remember, Russia is a target. Russia is part of the United States plan to expand its hegemony, and the United States will continue to challenge them, and Eurasia is that battlefield. So this is just more part of that grand strategy. So if anything, it's not Putin trying to reconstruct the Soviet Union, it's the United States trying to construct something even more imposing than the Soviet Union could have ever dreamed of. And so Europe is going to be pushed into sanctions that they don't want and will further damage their economies. And so far, the sanctions are coordinated in our corporate captured government in the United States to make sure that the business actually continues to be good. And in fact, the United States, in spite of all the sanctions, is doing more business with Russia than we ever have. And some of the sanctions will indeed hurt U.S. companies, though. Certainly gas and oil energy development equipment companies are going to suffer, and we've already seen Visa suffer. And so anyway, to start a trade war over this is asking for trouble that you may not be ready for. And it's kind of interesting, this whole concept of the communist boogeyman, the commies. It seems experts have come out since and said that even during that whole time of the Cold War, they never really considered the Soviet Union a real threat to the United States militarily. And they knew the point at which they surpassed any potential for Russia to dominate. But just like usual, they were a useful idiot, and the United States could continue to use them as a boogeyman to justify a massive military-industrial complex expansion. So the idea that things in Ukraine are Putin's responsibility is just plain wrong. He's certainly Russia's certainly has interest there, and they certainly have been involved in arming the rebels. But other than that, I think Putin and Russia have been remarkable in their restraint in handling that situation, and unfortunately, Putin being able to come out and be correct in his interviews and discussing every angle, including the disgraceful exploitation of these events for political use. And as I pointed out, Putin has every reason to be more concerned about NATO and the United States than the United States has of Russia reestablishing some glory days of the Soviet Union, considering there are only 16 nations in NATO in the 1990s when the Cold War ended. There's 28 now, and they're all closer to Russia. So who is the bad guy? Who should be demonized? I don't think it's Putin. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.